I mean, authenticity, there's all kinds of different lanes when it comes to that word. For instance, whenever you go to Grandma and Grandpa's house, you don't want authenticity. Hey, Grandma, how you doing? You know damn well
my bunions are killing me, Mark, and my liver hasn't been the same since second-term Reagan.
I haven't been able to poop in 4 days. Oh, God, just say you're fine. I want you to be inauthentic.
That's true.
Say you're fine so that we can sit down, have some stale crackers, and get the hell out of here as quickly as possible.
I haven't pooped since Easter, honey. Grandma, no.
So, right, we don't always want authenticity. That's even true when you run into somebody that you haven't seen in a while at the coffee house. You don't want, like, right, there's social cues. Like, I got somewhere to be. We can't sit here.
Hey, dude, how you been? It's been a long time.
Yeah, how you doing?
Well, I lost my wife in a fiery plane crash 7 months ago, and my dog died this morning. How are you?
Right.
Oh, boy, now I got to spend 20 minutes with you.
Here we go. Yeah, exactly. So I get it. Sometimes there are things that you feel you should say, and so you do, even though they're not truly from your gut what you're feeling in that moment. So we all do that. When we talk about it in the terms of a radio show, what I've always sort of promised, like I think people cruise around sometimes and they listen to shows, even, talk about Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith.
Oh, God.
And you're like, gosh, do they really feel those things? And my contention is a lot of times, no, they don't. Like when you get that wild, crazy Bayless opinion, no, that like there's a show going on and they won't even approach something if they can't at least feign disagreement. I don't really personally dig that stuff. You can hate my opinion, but know that when I'm saying it, it is my opinion. So I'd rather sort of play around in that space, but I get it. Steph felt like this is simple. I'm not criticizing him. He felt like this was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So he did it. And I'm fine with it. But all I can do is now give you my authentic reaction, which is when the whole Warrior organization goes to every platform that they can find this morning to thank Jordan Poole. It's like, well, you also said don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Right.
You found the quickest taker as quick as possible. Had to throw a bunch of other assets in. Like you begged someone to take Jordan Poole. And then it's like, oh, man, your brother. Well, yeah, you were at one point. You weren't this year. Look at their behavior. They couldn't win a road game. They're not brothers. Brothers would have been able to stand one another on the road, but they couldn't. So that's all. It just feels a little wonky to me.
Well, it's authentic to the extent that what he said in there is mostly true, and there was nothing too emotional about, Jordan, I'll never forget that time back in 2022 where you and I did this, and it really struck me, and those things you said really moved me. He basically read the man's Basketball Reference and talked about what he did, and he wished him well, and then he got to the Chris Paul portion of it, and boy, did his voice pick up, and the excitement over CP. Whoa. Let's go, let's get it. And, when you combine a goodbye and a hello, it's always going to be a little bit wonky.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, Matt Nahagian popped in here during the break, and he was like, yeah, PR 101, don't do those two things in the same video. Don't say goodbye to Jordan and hello to Chris Paul in the same video. And I get that. It sort of felt to me you remember the show we did where I was like, I really just, something made me feel kind of yucky about Joe Lacob's performance at the Bob Myers Sayonara presser.
Yeah.
Because I was like, by the end of the presser, Bob is just awkwardly sitting there sharing glances with his wife while Joe's talking about how the Warriors are not going to miss a beat without him. Oh, well, that's not what you want to say at somebody's retirement party, right? Nobody shows up with a cake. They got a party of 15. We booked the back room at the restaurant. Here's what I want to say about Bob. It's been a great 35-year run, and we really appreciate everything. I also want to let all of you know, Everything's going to be exactly the same next year.
Right.
We are not going to dip one bit. We're not going to miss this man at all. We're still going to be awesome because that's the way I run the show.
And let's introduce his replacement here. Before we cut the cake, let's bring him in.
Just could we have a separate day for that message? That's all.
And really the message for Jordan Poole, I know that you had to wait for the trade to be finalized, but the message to me would have been more powerful back in October when his own teammate punched him in the face, and that would have been a time for a more powerful, definitive statement about, Jordan Poole and about the situation and Draymond Green, and maybe those actions back then would have changed the course of events that we ended up going through until early May.
And actually, that's an interesting sort of conversation point, because one of the reasons Jordan never got everybody on his side the way you would think when someone gets punched out of nowhere is because the rest of the organization had a hard time looking authentic when they said what they said. Oh, we are all on Jordan's side. Draymond's got to re-earn our trust, and we do not support anything that took place here. Okay, so are you suspending Draymond? Well, no. No, we're not doing that.
No.
But we really want to support Jordan. Okay, so, maybe, at the end of the year, you wouldn't, re-sign Draymond then, would you, for $100 million? Oh, no, we can't win without Draymond. Are you crazy?
Right.
But Jordan's under contract, so, they had a hard time sounding authentic because they kind of weren't.
Right. And they weren't from the jump.
They don't like the guy.
It happens, and then whatever happens in the immediate aftermath, in the minutes after. We know this about what happened immediately after. Jordan Poole went and worked out. We know that that's fact. So Jordan Poole gets punched in the face, and it's not so bad that he has to go to the hospital or anything like that. So he goes in and he puts in the work. So he goes back to work, and then the video leaks the next day or about 12 hours later or whatever the timeline was. And then the Warriors have to go into complete damage control mode. And you're right. It's like, this is indefensible, and we're going to take a hard look, and we're going to handle it in-house was the word that they all used. And, well, they handled it in-house, but they didn't handle it to the extent where Jordan Poole felt like it should have been handled because he went into the tank.
In the end, Jordan was the one who had to re-earn their trust.
Right?
And didn't, which is odd. It's odd based on what we see and we know.
Right. But that the burden was on him.
Yeah. Yep.
And how could he, and I was talking to somebody earlier about what I would have done if I was in that spot and I had a coworker who did that and he was not punished at all. Then you have one of two choices. You have actually multiple choices. One of which is to just, forget about it. I'm going to go all in, and I'm going to bust my hump, and I'm going to re-earn that trust. And the other mode would be to do kind of what Jordan did, which is it seemed like he played a lot of the year with his own agenda in mind.
Yep, I agree with that.
And I don't blame him for that.
No, I don't. I don't know. In the end, something like this doesn't feel so much about blame. I just think it's one of those, and this is way too easy of a catch-all phrase, but it is what it is. It's not about fault. Draymond was totally out of line, and I'm confident that Jordan was in ways that we don't know, or else the whole team wouldn't have sort of turned on him. But if Steve Kerr is exasperated with your on-court decision-making, at the end of the day, you can't be a Warrior. That's just the reality of now. The reality of now is if Steve Kerr is exasperated with your on-court decision-making, he has been exasperated with Draymond's behavior before.
Yeah.
But if he's exasperated with your on-court decision-making, and then so is Steph, and so is Clay, and so is Draymond, you can't be a Warrior.
Yeah.
That's it. You just can't be a Warrior. So that's where we arrived. Because as we damn well know, the Warriors will put up with a ton if they think that you'll contribute to winning. They put up with Draymond freaking Green.
Yeah, they brought in Boogie Cousins for a year.
Right.
Not knowing full well what he had done in terms of interpersonal relationships in Sacramento and at other stops, and yet you needed a big and you felt like he would fit, and so you brought him in, and you realized, okay, same old Boogie, he's not going to fit, and then he was gone. You brought in JaVale McGee, a guy who was much maligned.
Shacked and a fool.
Exactly. He was a player that, wouldn't necessarily fit in many places, yet you brought him in. So, yeah, Jordan Poole, his on-court fit was not going to be something that was going to be a success long-term, and so you moved off him.
Let's get to the phones at 888-957-9570. Any thoughts on this? We're also streaming live on YouTube. As you know, head to youtube.com/957 The Game. You can watch us live and get all kinds of little insider aspects of the show. You can see the whole dang thing, and as we always remind you, it's like a backstage pass for if anybody swears. Not that happens often, but it does happen. Ain't that right, Grandy? All right, let's go to Dominic in San Jose. Don't swear, Dominic, but what are you doing?
Hey, first of all, I love your guys' synergy with each other, and you guys are an intellectual feast for the smart sports fan in the Bay Area.
Wow.
And also, I want to thank you. It's been so frustrating listening this morning and with Guru earlier today, just the romanticism of Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole did help us get a ring, no denying that. But a few reasons why I'm so frustrated watching him this year and why I'm glad he's gone. Number one, he doesn't make people around him better. He doesn't understand you're supposed to pass the ball after a couple seconds in Kerr's offense. He doesn't read the room, the idea that he won't let Curry take the last shot instead of him, even if he's open. And, the big three, Curry throwing his mouthpiece, Clay getting upset after the overseas trip, and culminating in the Draymond punch. Poole is partly accountable for that. And the bottom line is he is allergic to defense. At least Curry gets better incrementally where he's a decent defender now. And he just doesn't fit our ethos. And you can see in the body language with Kerr, Paul is going to give us flexibility if it doesn't work out this year. He should make people like Kuminga better. So my question to you guys is, I want to thank you for being right about Poole, unlike Bonte and Guru. But why haven't we re-signed Kerr for at least a couple more years? Can you give me the tea leaves on that?
Well,
is it going to be a distraction? And does Kerr not want to come back? I don't get it. Why can't we give him 2 more years at $32 million?
Thanks,
that's
Dominic.
definitely
Great
a possibility.
questions, yeah.
It's definitely a possibility. Let me first start out by saying, because he mentioned Bonte and Guru a couple of times, everybody's allowed to have your opinion on who you like and who you don't like.
No,
okay?
you will have our opinion or else.
I am not put off at all by the fact that some of our brethren see this a different way. If you're a Jordan Poole fan, rock out with your, do that.
Wow, with your chalk out.
That's right. Just you're allowed to like whichever player you like. You're allowed to see this a different way. If you're exasperated with Draymond and you think the team should have kicked him to the curb, great. Have that opinion. I don't even necessarily know if where we've arrived means that you and I were right. It means that we have the same opinion as the Warriors decision makers do. But they could be wrong. This could blow up in their face. Of course this could blow up in their face. What if Poole and Kuzma turn into a wonderful tandem and all the Warriors are hurt by January? This can blow up in their face.
Sure.
We just happen to see it the same way as I think some key Warriors dignitaries do. And the way I view it is I look at the last 10 years and I see greatness. And I know that joining greatness is very hard. Like, I will give Jordan that. That's hard. You see greatness in yourself, yet you've got to fit into a little box that this other place has set for you. And that may not feel good. So I understand the difficulties with it, but I also understand the realities. And the deal is you're joining greatness, so you've got to do it kind of their way.
And he did. He did do it their way.
For a while.
Yes, but I think the interesting thing for me, Mark, and I appreciate Dominic's phone call and the kind words, and I love the fact that here on the station we do have different opinions, and that's what makes our station the best sports station in town, because we have a wide variety of people, personalities, backgrounds, and opinions, and that's what makes our station so good. Jordan Poole did do what was asked of him, and then he got to a point where maybe he was feeling himself too much. It was money time. It was going to be a bag alert, a major bag alert. Whatever happened led to it not working any longer. And, I'm always fascinated by the Draymond Green part of this, because Draymond Green has been on the record loving trash talk, and he loves when people talk trash to him, yet somehow Jordan Poole was able to get under his skin to the point where Draymond took it to a whole different level, because Draymond Green thrives on his trash talk, but something about Jordan Poole, and forget the Steph and the Clay part of it for just a minute, something about Jordan Poole got to Draymond in a way that no one had ever gotten to Draymond before.
You know what you're making me think of? Like I've always wondered sometimes, in times of really difficult politics in our country's history, you'll hear the phrase war crimes. Some country committed war crimes.
Yeah.
And I remember always thinking, well, that's are there rules to war? Like the idea of war.
There are.
Apparently. But But I also am like, well, that's a crazy place to set some rules.
Right.
Like you're allowed to just take a chopper over to someone else's country and start killing people you never met before that have nothing to do with anything that you got going on.
That's legal.
And that's inbounds, but apparently somewhere in that process, but you can't do that.
Chemical warfare.
That
you can't torture prisoners, but you can bomb a civilian hospital.
Right. So I'm like,
what?
I have a hard time adding up here, but take that now to something a lot less serious, and that's trash talk. There are rules here. There are rules. Trash talk has to say in a certain spot. If Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan are on the floor together and they're getting in one another about their handle or about their post-up move or about their or old versus young, you old, brother, you getting all into this stuff, that's all inbounds. How would you feel if Kobe Bryant, during a trash talk session on the court with Michael Jordan, started talking about how his dad got murdered? Yo, out of bounds, dude.
Is it?
I think so. I bet Michael would think so. And that's how I view this. I'll never know what was said. None of us do. I've seen all the things that are on the internet of people who think they know what was said. I have no idea what was said. I am confident in looking at the Warriors' collective behavior that Jordan went over the line a bunch of times with either what he said or with what he did.
Right.
Within the framework of the game and outside the framework of the game. There are rules.
Sure.
There are places you don't go, even with people you know well.
Well, and that's always to your point about war crimes and the nebulous nature of trash talk. Who's to say what is over the line and what's not over the line?
Draymond's fist, apparently.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
So mentioning Michael Jordan's father's demise, to me, feels like that's over the line.
Agreed.
But if I'm in a Game 7 situation, what about a crowd chanting blank you Draymond over and over and over? That's not over the line. But if one individual who is courtside stands up in the Spike Lee seats and points his finger at Draymond and says, blank you Draymond, that fan's ejected.
Maybe.
But without a doubt.
Well, usually.
Without a doubt.
But usually it comes down to something special that was said.
Right.
Could be racist.
No, but to my point, if the whole crowd does it, it's like, Boston, the hostile Boston crowd. But if one individual stands up and is pointing his finger, Draymond can go over and go, dude, this fan is menacing me.
Totally.
And that fan gets ejected.
Well,
so this whole notion of like, what is inbounds, what's fair, what's foul, and all the rest of it.
It's a fuzzy line. And
I think it depends on the individual. Because if you're going to come up to Andrew Wiggins and talk trash about his 2-month absence and be like, dude, I've seen the Instagram, I know the truth, that might be out of bounds.
Maybe.
But if you say something to Draymond Green, who's a noted trash talker, that's more likely to be inbounds based on who he is.
Or Andrew might not even hear it based on the way he is. Like, I don't know if Kawhi Leonard has ears. I have no idea. Like, his trash talk, as we've learned, is he lays it in and he looks at someone and goes, buckets, and runs to the other end of the court. Like, that's
Kawhi.
It's not only different for every person, it's circumstantial.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're not going to receive one comment one day the same the next day because of the mood you might be in, because of the other things that are going on in your life. So there are certain days where you laugh it off, and the next day you punch someone in the face. I mean, who hasn't experienced that with their loved ones, right? Or you're just like, oh my gosh, I overreacted. And on another day, you're like, I'm bulletproof today, man. It's a payday Friday, and you can't get to me. You know what I mean? Also, your example, we borrow the phrase from the Warriors, strength in numbers. It's a lot easier to kick out one person than it is to kick out 15,000.
Right. And it's a lot easier to kick out the young fourth-year player who's not part of the core three, who hasn't won four titles, than it is to say, you know what, Draymond, we know that you were at fault. We're not going to extend you. We're going to keep Jordan Poole. Come on.